Turn the car around, right now, my sister texted me. I was the maid of honor, but I listened. What I found when I got back changed everything I thought I knew about the woman I called my best friend. The wedding dress hanging in her closet wasn't the one I'd helped her pick out. The guest list on her kitchen counter had my name crossed out in red ink, and the man answering her phone wasn't her fiancé. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. My name is Rebecca, and 3 months ago, I thought I was about to be part of the most beautiful wedding I'd ever seen. My childhood best friend, Sophia, was marrying David, a guy who seemed too good to be true. Successful architect, volunteer firefighter, the kind of man who brought her coffee every morning and remembered her mother's birthday without being reminded. They'd been together for 4 years, and honestly, I'd never seen her happier. I'd known Sophia since we were 7 years old. We met in 2nd grade when she defended me against Tommy Martinez, who kept pulling my pigtails during reading time. She marched right up to him, hands on her hips, and told him if he touched me again, she'd tell his mom he was being mean to girls. We became inseparable after that. Sleepovers every weekend, matching friendship bracelets, shared secrets whispered under blanket forts. We went to different colleges but stayed close, texting daily, visiting each other whenever we could. When she got engaged last year, she called me crying happy tears. Not because she was emotional about the proposal, but because she was relieved. She'd been worried David was going to break up with her. They'd been fighting more, spending less time together, and she was convinced he was losing interest. But then came the surprise proposal at their favorite restaurant, complete with rose petals and her grandmother's ring. She asked me to be her maid of honor before she even told her own sister. The wedding planning started immediately. Sophia had been dreaming about her wedding since we were kids, cutting pictures out of bridal magazines and creating elaborate Pinterest boards. She wanted everything perfect. Ivory dress with pearl buttons, garden ceremony, string quartet, dinner under twinkling lights. She'd saved for years to afford her dream venue, Rosewood Manor, a historic estate an hour outside the city with sprawling gardens and a ballroom that looked like something from a fairy tale. I threw myself into helping her plan everything. We spent countless weekends venue shopping, cake tasting, flower arranging. I organized her bachelorette party, coordinated with vendors, and even helped her find the perfect shoes. Sophia was particular about details, sometimes changing her mind about colors or decorations, but I didn't mind. This was her day, and I wanted it to be everything she dreamed of. The dress shopping was magical. We went to 5 different boutiques before finding the one, a stunning A-line gown with delicate lace sleeves and a cathedral train that made her look like royalty. She cried when she put it on, and so did I. The seamstress marked it for alterations, and Sophia put down a deposit that day. She kept a photo of herself in the dress on her phone and showed it to everyone who would look. 2 weeks before the wedding, I took time off work to help with final preparations. Sophia was stressed, which I expected. Every bride gets overwhelmed near the end. She was snapping at David more often, worrying about weather forecasts, changing seating arrangements daily. I tried to be supportive, reminding her that small details wouldn't matter in the end. What mattered was that she was marrying the man she loved. That's when things started feeling off. Sophia became secretive about certain wedding details. When I asked about the final guest count, she said she was handling it. When I offered to pick up her dress from alterations, she said she'd already gotten it. She stopped returning my calls as quickly and seemed distracted during our planning sessions. I told myself it was normal pre-wedding anxiety. The week of the wedding, I stayed at my sister Emma's house, which was 20 minutes from Rosewood Manor. Emma was coming as my +1, and we'd planned to get ready together before heading to the venue early to help set up. Emma had met Sophia several times over the years and liked her well enough, though she always said something seemed artificial about her. I defended Sophia, chalking it up to Emma being protective of me. The morning of the wedding, I woke up excited. This was the day we'd been planning for months. I'd picked up my bridesmaid dress the week before, a beautiful dusty rose gown that complemented Sophia's color scheme perfectly. My shoes were broken in, my hair appointment was booked, and I had a folder full of emergency supplies in case anything went wrong. Wedding coordinator was my unofficial secondary job title. Emma made us breakfast while I went over my checklist one more time. Flowers? Check. Rings? David's responsibility, but I'd texted him twice to confirm. Programs? I'd picked them yesterday. Marriage license? Sophia had it. Everything seemed under control. I was feeling proud of how smoothly everything had come together, despite Sophia's last-minute stress. At 10 in the morning, Emma and I loaded the car with my dress, makeup bag, and emergency kit. The ceremony wasn't until 4, but I wanted to be at the venue by noon to oversee setup and make sure Sophia had everything she needed. We were listening to music, talking about how beautiful the weather was, when my phone buzzed with a text from Emma. Wait, that's not right. The text wasn't from Emma. Emma was sitting right beside me. The text was from Emma, my sister Emma, but it said something that made no sense. I looked at my phone again. The message was from Sophia, not Emma. My brain was moving too fast. Turn the car around right now. I stared at the message, confused. We were already heading to the venue. Why would she want me to turn around? What's wrong? Emma asked, noticing I'd gone quiet. I showed her the text. She frowned. That's weird. Why would she want you to go back? I tried calling Sophia. No answer. I texted back. Why? Is everything okay? The response came immediately. Please just trust me. Come to my apartment. Don't go to the venue. My stomach dropped. Something was seriously wrong. Maybe there was an emergency. Maybe David was hurt, or her parents, or something had happened with the venue. I made a U-turn at the next light, my hands shaking slightly as I drove toward Sophia's apartment complex. Emma kept asking what I thought was happening, but I didn't have answers. Sophia's texts were unlike her. She was usually incredibly detailed in her communication, especially about wedding stuff. These short, urgent messages felt completely out of character. When we pulled into her apartment complex, I noticed David's car wasn't there. That was strange. On their wedding day, I would have expected them to be together, or at least for him to be nearby. The parking lot was mostly empty, except for a few residents' cars and a black sedan I didn't recognize. I knocked on Sophia's door, Emma standing behind me. No answer. I knocked again, louder this time. Sophia, it's Rebecca. That's when I heard voices inside, muffled, but definitely voices. A man's voice, definitely not David's. It was deeper, rougher. And Sophia's voice, but she sounded upset, almost arguing. Emma and I looked at each other. Something was very wrong. I tried the door handle. It was unlocked. I pushed the door open slowly. The apartment was dim, curtains drawn, and I could smell expensive cologne that definitely wasn't David's usual scent. Emma grabbed my arm, but I kept walking forward. The voices were coming from the bedroom. You said you'd handle this, the unfamiliar male voice was saying. I am handling it, Sophia replied, her voice tight with stress. She'll figure it out eventually. I froze. They were talking about me. Emma and I crept closer to the bedroom doorway. The door was slightly ajar, and through the crack, I could see Sophia sitting on the edge of her bed. She wasn't in her wedding dress. She was wearing jeans and a sweater, her hair in a messy bun, like she'd just rolled out of bed. Standing near the window was a tall man with dark hair I'd never seen before. What if she doesn't? He asked. What if she shows up at the venue anyway? Sophia laughed bitterly. Trust me, Marcus, after what she finds there, she won't want to show her face anywhere near that place. My blood went cold. Marcus. I'd heard that name before. Sophia had mentioned someone named Marcus a few times over the past months, always in passing. A work colleague, she'd said, someone from her marketing firm who helped with a few projects. I still think this is cruel, Marcus said, moving closer to her. She's supposed to be your best friend. She is, Sophia said, and for a moment, her voice cracked. That's what makes this so hard. Marcus sat down beside her on the bed, and I watched in horror as he put his arm around her shoulders. She leaned into him, and suddenly, everything clicked into place. The secretiveness, the mood swings, the way she'd been pulling away from wedding planning. When are you going to tell David? Marcus asked softly. Sophia shook her head. I can't, not today. He's already at the venue, getting ready. His whole family flew in from Portland. His grandmother is 92 years old, Marcus. This might be the last wedding she ever attends. I felt Emma's hand tighten on my arm. We needed to leave, to process what we were hearing, but I couldn't move. It was like watching a car accident in slow motion. "So, what's the plan?" Marcus asked. "I texted Rebecca to come here instead of going to the venue. By the time she figures out I'm not getting married today, hopefully David will have called it off himself. Maybe he'll think I got cold feet or had an accident or something. Anything that doesn't involve him finding out about us." Us? The word hit me like a physical blow. "And what about after today?" Marcus pressed. "I don't know," Sophia whispered. "I don't know anything anymore." I'd heard enough. I backed away from the door, pulling Emma with me. We made it to the living room before I had to stop, my hands shaking so badly I could barely function. Emma looked as shocked as I felt. "We have to go," she whispered. But I couldn't leave, not yet. I looked around Sophia's apartment, really looked, and started noticing things I'd missed before. A men's jacket draped over the back of the couch that was too big to be David's, a second coffee mug in the sink, a photo on the side table that I'd never seen before, Sophia laughing at what looked like a restaurant, sitting across from someone whose arm was visible in the frame. I walked to her kitchen counter, where she always kept her mail and important papers. That's where I saw it. The guest list I'd helped her create months ago, printed out with handwritten modifications. My name was crossed out in red ink, along with several other people. But it wasn't just crossed out. Someone had written "No" in capital letters next to it. Emma appeared beside me, looking over my shoulder. "Rebecca, we really need to go." "Look at this," I said, my voice barely audible. I pointed to other changes on the list. David's groomsmen had been reduced from 5 to 3. His college friends were crossed out. His cousin from Chicago was marked as declined. "She's been uninviting people," Emma said, understanding immediately. I kept looking through the papers on the counter. That's when I found the receipts. Cancellation confirmations from vendors. The string quartet, canceled 2 weeks ago. The photographer, canceled last week. The florist, reduced order, half the arrangements canceled. "Oh my God," I breathed. Emma was looking at something else. "Rebecca, look at this." She was holding a printout of an email confirmation, a hotel reservation in Marcus's name for tonight and tomorrow night. The Grandview Resort, 3 hours north of the city. A romantic getaway package. I heard footsteps from the bedroom. They were coming out. Emma grabbed my hand and we rushed toward the front door, but we weren't fast enough. "Rebecca?" Sophia's voice was shocked, panicked. "What are you doing here?" I turned around slowly. She was standing in the hallway, Marcus behind her, both of them looking like they'd been caught stealing. "You told me to come here," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. Sophia's face went through several emotions at once: guilt, fear, defiance. "I can explain." "Can you?" I asked. "Can you explain why you're here with him instead of getting ready for your wedding? Can you explain why you canceled half your vendors?" Marcus stepped forward. "Maybe I should go." "Don't," Sophia said quickly. "Just don't." The three of us stood there in terrible silence. Emma stayed by the door, ready to leave, but I couldn't move. "How long?" I asked. "Rebecca, please." "How long have you been seeing him?" Sophia's shoulders sagged. 6 months. 6 months. I thought back to 6 months ago. That was right around the time she'd started getting weird about wedding planning, right around the time she'd begun changing her mind about details, becoming secretive, pulling away from me. "Does David know?" She shook her head. "No."
Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story.
"Are you planning to tell him?" "I don't know." I stared at her, this person I thought I knew better than anyone. "So what was the plan, Sophia? Leave him at the altar? Let him wait there in front of all his family and friends while you run off with Marcus?" "It's not like that," she said, but her voice lacked conviction. "Then what is it like? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're about to humiliate the man who loves you while your best friend covers for you. I never asked you to cover for me. You asked me to be your maid of honor. You asked me to plan your bachelorette party, coordinate with vendors, spend my vacation time helping you prepare for a wedding you never intended to have. Sophia's eyes filled with tears. I wanted to have the wedding. I love David. But you love Marcus, I said. She didn't deny it. Marcus cleared his throat. Look, this is between you two. I'm going to wait in the car. After he left, Sophia and I stood facing each other in her living room. The same living room where we'd addressed wedding invitations 3 months ago, where we'd planned her bachelorette party, where we'd laughed about how perfect her life was going to be. Why? I asked. I don't know, she said, wiping her eyes. It just happened. Marcus and I started working on a project together, and we connected. I tried to stop it, Rebecca. I really did. But every time I was with David, I kept thinking about Marcus. And every time I was with Marcus, David felt like a stranger. So you decided to string David along until your wedding day? I kept thinking I could make it work, that I could fall back in love with David, that maybe Marcus was just a phase. And now? She looked toward the door where Marcus had gone. Now I know I can't marry David, but I don't know how to tell him without destroying him. I thought about David, probably at the venue right now, adjusting his tie, joking with his groomsmen, excited to start his life with the woman he adored. His grandmother who'd flown in from Portland, his parents who'd spent thousands of dollars on this wedding, all the guests who'd arranged babysitters, taken time off work, bought gifts. What about me? I asked. What about you? What was I supposed to do today? Show up at the venue and pretend I didn't know? Help David figure out where his bride was? Hold his hand while he realized he'd been abandoned? Sophia looked genuinely surprised. I thought maybe you'd just not go. Not go to my best friend's wedding? Not go to a wedding I've spent months planning? Just disappear and let everyone wonder where the maid of honor was? I'm sorry, she said quietly, but sorry wasn't enough. Sorry didn't fix the fact that she'd been lying to me for months, using me to plan a wedding she never intended to have. Sorry didn't help David, who was probably putting on his boutonniere right now, completely unaware that his world was about to collapse. I looked around the apartment one more time, at all the evidence of her deception scattered around like breadcrumbs. The canceled vendor receipts, the hotel reservation, the crossed-out guest list. I have to go, I said. Where? I didn't answer. I walked toward the door where Emma was waiting. Rebecca, please, Sophia called after me. Don't do anything crazy. I stopped and turned back to her. Crazy? You want to know what's crazy? Crazy is letting someone you claim to love stand at an altar waiting for someone who's never going to show up. Crazy is letting 50 people waste their Saturday afternoon on a lie. So what are you going to do? I looked at her one more time. This person I'd trusted with my secrets, my time, my energy, my loyalty. This person who'd been willing to let me be complicit in her betrayal without even asking. I'm going to do what you should have done months ago, I said. I'm going to tell the truth. Emma and I drove to Rosewood Manor in complete silence. My hands were steady on the steering wheel, but my mind was racing. I kept thinking about David's face when I'd seen him last week, glowing with happiness as he talked about their honeymoon plans. They were supposed to fly to Italy tomorrow morning. He'd been learning basic Italian phrases to surprise Sophia. The venue looked exactly as we'd planned it. White chairs arranged in perfect rows facing an archway covered in roses and baby's breath. String lights hung between the oak trees, waiting to be turned on for the evening reception. The catering staff was setting up tables on the stone terrace, and I could see David's groomsmen near the main building, laughing about something. I parked near the bridal suite, a charming cottage behind the main manor where Sophia was supposed to be getting ready. Instead, it sat empty, the windows dark. Emma touched my arm. "Are you sure about this?" she asked. I nodded. I'd never been more sure of anything in my life. David was easy to spot. Even from a distance, his nervous energy was obvious. He kept checking his watch, adjusting his tie, running his hands through his hair. When he saw me walking toward him, his face lit up with relief. "Rebecca, thank God you're here. Have you seen Sophia? She was supposed to be here an hour ago, and I can't reach her." His best man, Tyler, walked over. Her phone keeps going to voicemail. We tried calling her parents, but they said they haven't heard from her since yesterday. I looked at David's hopeful face, at Tyler's concerned expression, at the other groomsmen gathering around us. Behind them, I could see guests starting to arrive. David's elderly grandmother was being helped from a car by his cousins. Sophia's coworkers were walking up the path, carrying beautifully wrapped gifts. David, I said, carefully, we need to talk, privately. Something in my tone made his smile fade. What's wrong? Is she okay? Did something happen? She's fine, but I glanced around at all the people, all the preparations, all the money and time and love that had gone into this day. She's not coming. David blinked. What do you mean she's not coming? Did her car break down? Is she stuck somewhere? No, David, she's not coming to the wedding. She's with someone else. The words hung in the air between us. I watched David's face go through a series of changes. Confusion, disbelief, then a terrible understanding. Someone else? Tyler asked. I nodded. His name is Marcus. They've been together for 6 months. David sat down heavily on the stone steps leading to the manor. He put his head in his hands. 6 months, he repeated quietly. I'm so sorry, I said. I just found out myself. She asked me to come to her apartment instead of here, and I found them together. Tyler was staring at me like I'd spoken in a foreign language. Are you saying Sophia is cheating on David? I'm saying she's been living a double life. She canceled half the vendors weeks ago. She crossed names off the guest list, including mine. She never intended for this wedding to happen. David looked up at me, his eyes red. But why? Why would she let it get this far? Why not just break up with me? I thought about Sophia sitting on her bed, leaning into Marcus's arms, talking about David's 92-year-old grandmother. I think she was hoping she could figure out how to end it without hurting anyone, but there was no way to do that. So she was just going to leave me here, in front of everyone? I didn't answer, because we both knew that's exactly what had been about to happen. Tyler put his hand on David's shoulder. What do you want to do? David stood up slowly, straightening his jacket. I need to tell people. My family flew here from 3 different states. Sophia's parents spent their retirement savings on this reception. I can help, I offered. He shook his head. No, this is my responsibility now. I watched David walk toward his family, his shoulders set with determination, even though I could see his hands shaking. He approached his parents first, pulling them aside near the rose garden. I couldn't hear what he said, but I saw his mother's hand fly to her mouth, saw his father's face darken with anger. Emma came up beside me. How's he taking it? Better than I expected. He's stronger than Sophia gave him credit for. David spent the next 30 minutes having the same awful conversation over and over again with his grandparents, his siblings, his college friends. Each time, the reaction was the same: shock, then anger, then concern for David. Several people asked where Sophia was, as if they wanted to confront her themselves. Sophia's parents were the hardest to watch. Her mother, Carol, had been so excited about the wedding, calling me weekly to coordinate details. When David told them, Carol started crying immediately. Her father, Frank, just stood there, looking stunned. Where is she? Carol asked through her tears. David looked at me. I realized he was asking if I wanted to answer. She's at her apartment with Marcus, I said gently. Frank's face went from stunned to furious. Marcus? From her work? I nodded. I knew something was wrong, Carol said. She's been so distant lately, so stressed about everything. I thought it was normal wedding nerves. It wasn't your fault, David told her. None of this was anyone's fault except hers. By 4 o'clock, when the ceremony was supposed to start, most of the guests had been told and were beginning to leave. Some stayed to support David, gathering on the terrace where the reception was supposed to happen. The catering staff, professional as always, asked if we wanted them to serve the dinner anyway. David said yes. If people had traveled here, at least they should eat. That's when my phone started ringing. Sophia. I looked at David. Do you want me to answer it? He nodded. Rebecca, thank God, Sophia's voice was frantic. I've been trying to call David, but his phone is off. I need to talk to him. It's too late for that, Sophia. What do you mean too late? The ceremony isn't until 4. I looked at my watch. It was 4:15. The ceremony was supposed to be at 4. You know, the one you've been planning for a year? The one you had no intention of attending? Silence. I told him, I continued. I told everyone. Your parents are here, Sophia. Your mother is heartbroken. You had no right. Her voice was sharp now, defensive. I had no right? You made me complicit in this. You let me plan a wedding that was never going to happen. You were going to let David stand at that altar alone. I was going to call him. When? After he'd been waiting there for an hour? After his grandmother collapsed from the shock? More silence. Put David on the phone, she said finally. I looked at David. He was sitting at one of the reception tables, picking at a piece of wedding cake that had his and Sophia's names written in elegant script. He shook his head. He doesn't want to talk to you, I said. This is between me and him, Rebecca. You're just the maid of honor. Something snapped inside me. No, Sophia, I'm not just the maid of honor. I'm the person who spent 3 months of her life helping you plan this disaster. I'm the person you lied to every single day. I'm the person who had to watch David's face when I told him the truth. I never asked you to tell him. You never asked me to do a lot of things, but I did them anyway because I thought you were my friend. I heard Marcus's voice in the background, saying something I couldn't make out. I have to go, Sophia said. Running away again? I asked. She hung up. Emma appeared with a plate of food.
You should eat something. I realized I hadn't eaten all day. The wedding cake was actually delicious, despite everything. I sat down next to David, who was staring out at the gardens where he'd expected to take his wedding photos. Do you regret it? He asked quietly. Telling me? I thought about it. No. Do you wish I hadn't? No, he said after a moment. Better to know the truth than live a lie. David's best man, Tyler, sat down across from us. So what happens now? David laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. Now I figure out how to cancel a honeymoon to Italy and return a bunch of wedding gifts. What about legally? Tyler asked. I mean, she was living with you, planning a life with you, while seeing someone else. That has to count for something. I'd been wondering the same thing. Did you guys have any joint accounts, shared expenses for the wedding? David nodded slowly. She insisted on paying for her dress and some other things from our joint savings, said it was more romantic that way. How much? About $8,000. Tyler whistled. That's fraud, isn't it? If she was planning to leave you the whole time? I thought about the hotel reservation I'd seen on Sophia's counter. She booked a romantic getaway with Marcus for tonight and tomorrow, probably using money from your joint account. David's jaw tightened. She's using our money to go on a romantic trip with her boyfriend? The reservation was in his name, but the timing is pretty suspicious. Emma, who'd been quiet, spoke up. You should document everything. Take pictures of the canceled vendors, the crossed-out guest list, anything that proves she was planning this. David looked at me. Would you be willing to write down everything you saw today, what you heard at her apartment? I nodded. Of course. That evening, after most of the guests had gone home, David's family gathered in the manor's main hall. His parents, his grandparents, his siblings, all sitting around trying to process what had happened. His grandmother, who'd flown from Portland for what she'd thought would be her grandson's wedding, was surprisingly philosophical. Better to find out now than after you're married, she told David. Some people show their true colors when it matters most. David's mother was less forgiving. That girl wasted everyone's time and money. She humiliated our entire family. Mom, David said gently, no, I'm serious. What kind of person does this? What kind of person lets it get this far? I thought about Sophia, probably checking into her romantic hotel right now with Marcus, while David sat here surrounded by the ruins of their supposed future. What kind of person indeed? 3 weeks later, I got a call from David. Sophia had tried to access their joint savings account and found it frozen. She'd also received a letter from a lawyer about the wedding expenses she'd fraudulently authorized while planning to abandon him. She called me, David said, crying, saying she made a mistake, that Marcus wasn't what she thought he was. What did you tell her? I told her she was right. She did make a mistake, but it wasn't choosing Marcus over me. It was thinking she could have both. 6 months later, David sent me a photo. He was standing on a beach in Italy, the trip he'd originally planned as his honeymoon, but this time he was with someone new, a woman named Claire he'd met in his photography class, someone who made him laugh the way I'd never seen Sophia do. The caption read, "Sometimes the best thing that can happen to you is finding out who people really are before it's too late. Thank you for being brave enough to tell the truth." I never heard from Sophia again, but I heard through mutual friends that she and Marcus broke up 2 months after the wedding that never was. Apparently, he wasn't ready for the kind of serious relationship she was looking for. Some people called me cruel for exposing her secret. They said I should have minded my own business, let her handle it herself. But every time I thought about David's face that day, the relief mixed with hurt when he finally understood what had been happening, I knew I'd made the right choice. Because sometimes being a good friend means protecting the people you care about from the people who would hurt them, even when one of those people used to be your best friend. A year later, I found myself standing in another bridal suite, but this time everything felt different. My cousin Jennifer was getting married, and as I helped her into her dress, I couldn't help but think about how different this felt from that awful day with Sophia. Jennifer was genuinely excited, nervous in all the right ways, talking nonstop about her future husband and their plans together. "You're being awfully quiet," Jennifer said, looking at me in the mirror as I fastened her necklace. I smiled. "Just thinking about how happy you look." And she did. There was something authentic about her joy that I'd never really noticed was missing with Sophia. Jennifer's excitement came from love, not from the idea of a perfect wedding or the appearance of happiness. David ended up taking Sophia to small claims court over the wedding expenses. She was ordered to pay back the money she'd spent on canceled vendors and the joint account funds she'd used for her getaway with Marcus. The judge wasn't sympathetic to her explanation that she'd been confused about her feelings. Emma told me she'd seen Sophia at a coffee shop downtown a few months ago. She looked different, Emma said. Tired, maybe older. She was alone, working on a laptop, and when she saw Emma, she'd quickly packed up and left without saying anything. I felt a strange mix of sadness and closure hearing that. Part of me missed the friendship we'd had, or thought we'd had. But I realized now that I'd been friends with a version of Sophia that might never have really existed. The real Sophia was someone who could lie for months, who could use people without considering the consequences, who could prioritize her own comfort over everyone else's well-being. Jennifer's wedding was beautiful, simple, genuine, filled with people who truly cared about each other. During the ceremony, I found myself thinking about truth and friendship and the courage it takes to do the right thing, even when it's difficult. The bride and groom exchanged vows they'd written themselves, promising honesty and communication and partnership. When Jennifer's voice cracked, saying the words "in good times and in bad," I felt tears in my eyes, but they were happy tears this time. At the reception, David sent me a text. He'd seen the photos I'd posted and wanted to say how beautiful the wedding looked. He was doing well, he said. Claire had moved in with him, and they were talking about taking a cooking class together. Simple, normal relationship things that felt revolutionary after everything with Sophia. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't gotten that text from Emma telling me to turn around. If I'd gone straight to the venue, would Sophia have shown up? Would she have gone through with marrying David while planning to leave him? Or would she have found the courage to call it off herself? I'll never know, and I've made peace with that. What I do know is that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refusing to be part of someone else's lie, even when it costs you a friendship you thought would last forever. Looking back, I realized that day taught me something important about loyalty. Real loyalty isn't about keeping someone's secrets no matter what. It's about caring enough to stop them from hurting themselves and others, even when they don't want to be stopped. I'm grateful now for that text message, for Emma's steady presence, for the courage I found to speak up when it mattered. Because sometimes the hardest thing and the right thing are exactly the same thing. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.